It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchi, and thanks a lot for joining us on another brand new show. I still want to start off the show this week talking about COVID-19. I think it's very important that we keep getting reminded of the fact that this deadly virus is still raging, and Nigeria continues to hit unfortunate record highs with regards to infection numbers across the country, and suddenly everybody seems to know somebody who has COVID, or a relative or a friend of a friend is slowly hitting closer to home for a lot of people. And I think that's testament to the fact that a lot of us are not doing the right thing. So please, 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 try as much as you can. Wear your masks, socially distance, stay at home if you don't have to go anywhere. They're just very basic rules that we need to just follow until we get a bit of an idea of how this vaccine will probably work for us here in Nigeria. But please, we need to stay safe and stay alive. We're going to be starting off the show talking about digitization, especially of the Nigerian business sector. And I'm joined here by Omar Clark to help me dissect that. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Socially distanced enough, I believe. So this is a conversation that's been going on for quite a while for a lot of Nigerians. There seems to be a sense of almost resistance from government whenever digitization comes up. And, you know, do you get that sense that the government isn't particularly excited about, you know, getting a lot of these? We're talking about healthcare, census, you know, elections, access to education. There seems to be, do you think it's a resistance or a lack of willpower?
I think it's a lack of willpower, but it's possibly to do with lack of skills as well. Digital illiteracy and that. So maybe in government we don't have many people. But then there's the willpower thing, so we can't underestimate that at all. Yeah. But then skills. If you look at Nigeria, the way I can think about dividing it, maybe 30% of Nigeria is urbanized, and that's where you have everything that is digital, and it's not like we're that digital, but 70% is like rural and semi-urban, and it's just lacking. Yeah. So, and Nigeria, we're vast, you know, Nigeria is huge. You know, there are so many things competing. We've got legacy systems, i.e. old systems, you know, paper, manual, and to bring everything up to digital might take some time. I think if we want to like define digital, for example, so people are not confused, digital is using electronic, you know, it's from digits, using ones and zeros, you know, as opposed to analog, which is using paper. So if you go to, you mentioned the healthcare system, which is, you know, where they've had like records, millions of records that are just paper. Now you say, okay, let's turn these things to computer systems. It takes time. It takes effort, so that's the willpower. There's the policies. We need the enabling environment, you know, and then you need people that have the relevant skills. Nobody, you can't just wake up in the morning and say, yes, I'm going to do this, you know. It needs to be a phased, planned approach, and maybe, so it's a combination of many things. Yeah.
So talking about, you know, digitization and things that are new, what of the new things that we would have thought would be easier to handle is the NIN, National Identification Number, which has suddenly become a topic of conversation, and I think we have a few days to go before the deadline, and people's phone lines are apparently supposed to be cut off if you've not linked your phone number to the NIN. We've seen pictures online and in the news media of people gathered at these NIN offices physically in the raging pandemic, with numbers going up, trying to get their national identification numbers just because of this deadline that's been issued. Do you look at something like that? Do you think it could have been done differently if, I don't know, if technology was probably deployed differently? Are we just overthinking or exaggerating what technology can do in a situation like that?
So now it's a whole range of things you just mentioned. So there's the technical bit, the digital bit. Is the NIN database adequate? You know, let's talk about that first. That's the technology part of it. Yes, we have a database. I think it works fine. I registered, you know. They have, so everything we have now is like, when it comes back to implementation, the knowledge of the people, you know. I remember I registered for my NIN in 2014, I think it was. They gave me the piece of paper, not the card. And then last year, December, just before all of this, it was just by chance, I went to renew my passport. And they said to me, you have to have your NIN, you know, which is fine. I'm like, I have one. I went there. But they were like, I have a middle name in my passport that is not on the NIN paper. So it's like, oh, this name has to be here. So I'm like, okay, insert it, you know, just enter the name. It's like, oh no, you have to have a new one. So that's an incorrect understanding of how technology, as somebody that builds technology, I know I do not have to re-register. I have to re-register, do my capture again, do the photograph. All you have to do is update a record. So that's knowledge, lack of knowledge, digital illiteracy. So there's a digital divide, gap there that needs to be fixed. And then, so when you come, now, they gave us a deadline. I remember I've read something that said from 2028, 2029, we can only register so much. The database can only capture so many people. Don't ask me why, so maybe there's a failing there. So I think we can only do 4 million people in a year, So that's a problem. If we're a population of 206 million, how many people have registered? How many people need to be registered before the deadline? So that's a problem. That's why you have so many people crowding at the COVID-19, is it COVID-19?
Literally the COVID-19 centers for the NIN registration
at the NIN registration centers, that's why you have so many people. So that is not a technology problem.
Yeah.
Now, maybe we can, if the technology is more robust, maybe if our country, if we have people that, think are innovative, you can say people do this thing online, there are other means and ways that this can be done. But unfortunately, you still have a semi-manual process, i.e. you have to physically go there and one person is bashing all these things into a computer when I can sit in my house and just do it. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the thing, So it's not a technology problem per se. It's a human problem.
And just an administration, or like you said, a lack of willpower. Well, let's go to Victor Ekwala, who's joining us online. Victor, thanks a lot for joining us. And I want to take things a little differently now and talk about, thanks for joining us. Talk about elections, because people have always said, Nigerians, we need to computerize our elections, digitize our elections, it's going to stop rigging and all of that. But suddenly America has become a prime example of so many things. And with the last elections that held in November in the United States, there were so many recounts of so many elections in so many states. And people wondered, so if these computers are so accurate, why do we have to go back to the old style of hand recounting of these ballots? Do you think that's a viable conversation to have here with regards to our elections? I mean, I know the general elections are still about 2 years away, but there are some state elections coming up this year, I think in Anambra and a few other places. Is that conversation a valid one to be having with tech in the mix?
It is valid, but it's not very viable. I covered West Africa's first electronic election. It was in Kaduna State. It was local government elections. I covered it in, I think it was 2018 or 2017. And it was interesting. It was smooth, but it had a lot of failings and shortcomings that made it obvious that we're not yet at that place where we can fully digitize electoral processes. It is possible, because I saw the one in Kaduna worked to a very large extent. Yes, there were failings, right? I was there physically. But there are a lot more things that need to happen. We don't have the resources and the wherewithal to make it happen yet. So, valid, yes. Feasible, no.
What about the census? We were supposed to have our census, I think it was in 2016. We're about 5 years late now. And I hear President Buhari is saying that finally there might be an allocation for that, I think sometime this year or next year. We're banding so many figures, 206 million supposed Nigerians. Many people argue with that number. Tech was not there in 2006 heavily, which was the last time we had a census. 15 years later, there's a tech sector booming in Nigeria. Technology generally around the world is different now. What do you see the role being played? Are we going to probably have our very first accurate census in this country?
Again, yes, it's possible. But there is the question of visibility, right? So I think one of the biggest conversations we're going to be having here is that of databases. We have the capability to make this thing work. The technology exists, like local technology exists to make these things work. But there are a lot of things that are still holding these things in place. So you talk of policy, you talk of resources. So it costs a lot of money to digitize processes that have been typically analog, like like you said, this is going to be the first time something like this is going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of software, a lot of hardware, a lot of logistics that are going to put in place. It's a ton of money, a ton of anticipated resources, a lot of policy changes, a lot of accommodations that I don't know if we're ready for. But yeah, it will be interesting to see that.
I mean, listening to both of you, I get a sense that there's not a lot of faith in the system. We do have a ministry of an ICT minister that oversees ICT and all of that. And a lot of you are working in the tech space, and there's the constant talk about the fact that you guys are succeeding in spite of government, not necessarily because of government. Are there any engagements that you see that you have with government that's, seeing them trying to tap into the knowledge and sort of this boom that's happening in Nigeria to help the economy thrive?
Okay. There is something I think about as the Nigerianization of problems, right? It's that thing that happens where we Nigerianize every problem, right? Globally, technology and innovation is moving at a pace that is too fast for regulators and lawmakers to keep up with. And it's not just a Nigerian problem, even in the US, right? You have the Airbnbs, the Uber, still have a lot of regulatory problems across the world. So yes, tech is moving really fast. Regulators and regulation cannot keep up with how fast tech is moving. And this means that every once in a while, there is going to be a lot of this misunderstanding. And it means that when you have a lot of, government bodies trying to do good, they end up impeding the progress of these things. Sometimes, I don't know if this is their intent, and I don't believe this is their intent, because I think in Nigeria, the government tries to do its part, right? It tries to help. It tries to do everything. But there is a large gap of understanding. There's like a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of, people that do not understand how this space basically works, right? Over the years, things have changed a lot, to be very honest, since, say, 2014, 2015. Has been a large incremental gap being bridged between government and tech practitioners, the tech ecosystem in Nigeria. A lot has happened, to be very honest. Again, like, we can just complain and say, oh, things are not where they're supposed to be. Regulators are still wilding and impeding innovation to a very large extent. But truth is, things are not how they used to be, and there is room for things to get better. It's just happening at a pace that is too slow for this pace of innovation, for the population, and for what we intend and need to do with technology in Nigeria. That's the thing. But yeah, a lot has happened.
I'll come back to you, Victor, but back to you now, Mo. Just kind of same question to you. What are your thoughts on, government interaction with the tech space in Nigeria? There's so much that could be done with technology, and Nigeria seems to be thriving really well in that space. But from the outside, it doesn't seem like there's a synergy enough between the tech space and government.
No, it can be a lot better. It can be a lot better. I think government, like you said, government has actually stepped up from a few years ago to what we have now. Is a lot better, but we can do a lot more. I don't think government, from a tech perspective, they engage with the younger, a lot of young people are in tech. So I don't think we engage a lot with the young people to find out what's going on, even within the tech industry. I've been involved in some conferences, events with older players in the tech industry, and they don't even, because technology is fast. So what you learned 10 years ago is different from what people are doing now. So there needs to be more synergy, more engagement, a lot more, for us to actually, go where we're going and do what we need to do. Yeah.
There's been a lot of fear recently now about schools reopening tomorrow. There were people thinking it was going to be moved, but the Lagos state government has come out and said, it's insisting on the 18th of January. I think it's just Edo State, and I think one or two other states have said we're still going to watch things. Children should still stay at home. But most people are going back to schools tomorrow. The irony, though, is that government workers are told to stay back at home. So we're trying to protect the workers and push the children to school. So education always comes to mind. Some private schools are able to go digital and, teach across the internet and all of that. But the mass population of Nigeria cannot even afford this.
It's a problem.
Yes.
It's like what I was saying. If you use a 30-70% divide, 30% are urbanized, and even within the urban area. So most people can't, I know so many people that from the lockdown from March last year, children are just wandering up and down, doing nothing. The parents can't teach them. So they are just there. And then when we talk about digitization, we have to talk about power. The enabling environment, because it's not just like I have a computer, I can do this. Do you have light? If you don't have power, then it becomes a problem. So going back to school, it's the dangers of COVID is spreading. As you said, more people, we're seeing more people that we know getting COVID now. So when you release your children into that environment, then it becomes a worry. Yeah. Even if they don't get it or they are asymptomatic, then they bring it home to their parents. Yeah. It's a real concern. Yeah. So in terms of edu-tech, that's what it's called, education technology, a lot more has to be done. A lot more has to be done by the government. Within private schools, there's private and there's private, because not a lot of private schools could even adopt that. A lot of parents cannot afford it. A lot of people just have one laptop in their house. Then you have children trying to compete to school, the parents trying to work, there's data. So it's a huge problem, the technology, the internet infrastructure, we need to do something to make it more affordable, and that really needs to be driven by government. Yeah.
Victor, do you think, just putting you on the hotspot now, do you think tech has done enough, especially with COVID? Nobody was really prepared for it, but a lot of people had to fall heavily on technology from March up until now. Do you think the tech space in Nigeria has done enough to help? We're talking education, healthcare, the basics that people had to fight for are still having to fight for till today. Do you think the tech space has done enough or can do more?
Enough, yes. Can do more, yes. The fact that we have been sustained up to this time has been a very large effort of technology, digital platforms, social media, and even the government and government agencies that are involved with, informing people of the pandemic have made a very good use of social media platforms. To be very honest, Nigeria has been very, very much up to date on its digital battles with this pandemic, right? And from the general platform and consumer perspective, there's a lot of technology that has been in place, like e-commerce. E-commerce has taken off. People now shop more online. And you think about it, what if e-commerce wasn't a thing? There's going to be a lot of, physical interaction, people trying to get what they need, physically from markets. This virus is going to be more than it is now. Then you have e-learning. E-learning conversation and another thing, for more saying, that's a totally different thing. But the fact that it even exists and we have platforms, both local and foreign, that are available for Nigerian students to get on is a very good thing. Think about it. If this pandemic happened, say, 6-7 years ago, we'll be having a different conversation now. Off the top of my head, I don't know how possible, as of 2013, 2014, the internet was not great enough for me to be in my room and be on this show with you, Ebuka.
Very true.
So yes, that's a very...
So it's a sign of the times.
It's a sign of change, improvement, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. You wanted to quickly follow up on something or more very quickly?
Yeah, I was going to say COVID-19 actually, it exposed the digital divide in Nigeria. From my perspective, dealing with a lot of MSMEs, small companies and some of them very high turnover, it showed, the lack of digital preparedness we had. It showed the lack of digital infrastructure. Companies turning over billions of naira, no digital. When COVID came, they were stuck.
They were not ready at all.
They were not ready. They were stuck. A lot of them had to shed so many stuff, had to almost shut down, and then started thinking about, okay, what can I do? A lot of them had to reinvent their business models now. How can we adopt tech? Yeah. So it showed that huge divide, but it showed a lot of people started getting onto the digital. Now we don't have to preach to people, come and be digital.
They've seen the
Now they've seen that, okay, I have to be digital. Yeah. So,
Hopefully government has woken up to that most importantly. But we have to go on a break now. Thank you very much, Omar. Thank you very much, Victor, for joining us online. We'll take a break now and come back with some entertainment. Don't go away.